Well, when it's 11 o'clock in the morning, any day of the week besides Friday, it's kind of just, whatever. But on a Friday, every Friday, Mountain Daylight Time, it's 360 Performance. I'm Coach Whiteman or Dr. Whiteman. You pick. People know me by both. We're going to have a great show today. I'm going to get a little after it. Just felt a little kind of out of it today, so I just kind of perked up myself and try to push through a little discomfort. It happens, well, for some people it happens as they get older, but I stay active, trying to be myself as best I can, be my best self. As my daughter would say to me, be your best self today, have your best day. Well, today we're going to talk about, do you see what you get? What you see is what you get. Maybe, maybe not, I'm not sure. But that's our theme for today. And we're going to use this quote for our mindset moment. And the quote goes like this. I'm a firm believer in the people. If given the truth, they can be depended upon to meet any national crisis. The great point is to bring them the real facts. Now, I'm not going to get into many more details about this quote and how it relates to present day and what's going on in our country as well as globally. But that quote about truth and providing us with facts, it engages people. It encourages them. It gives them confidence. Because when facts are worked upon through practice and preparation, it's those facts that get larger and even more energized with motivating you to do and be your best. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Do you really, when you see it, is that what you get? We're going to figure that out a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about it. And we're going to use that quote as our leverage point, our launching pad for moving forward. Because what you see is what you get can be a question as well as a direct statement. I'm not always sure what I see is what I get. I look in the mirror in the morning and I go, whoa, I don't want to get that. It's something that I just kind of, I flinch. But then I look at it, I take a breath, and I consider exactly what I feel like. And I get a frame of reference. I get more information that I digest. It's a set of facts. It's a set of impressions as well. And then I settle on those impressions with what is real for me, what really grounds me for that moment. And I start to actually see what I'm getting. Just like in this picture I just pulled up, Muhammad Ali standing over the knockout punch. In sports, it's not just what you see, it's what you feel is what you get. The reality, the truth, the facts are very self-evident. In one moment, you can see very quickly what that behavior, what that image has delivered for you. Just like in this picture of Ali, classic picture, the knockout punch, standing over the top of his opponent with an expression on his face that sends another message about what you see is in fact what you get. You see, you got this. You see this punch, you got this. That is self-evident. That's a declarative, a self-evident declarative moment. I want to see more of those. I want to feel more of those moments. The declaration of the actions I take deliver results I expect, I hope. I hope there are the results I expect. Which was another reason why I wanted to bring up this topic today about, is what I see what I really get? And how do I know? If it's not me that's performing, how do I know what I see is what I'm getting back in return? Because sometimes images can be adjusted, they can be modified, they can be altered in some way to give me an impression, an image, a picture, a feeling that isn't exactly what's there. But the picture, created by whomever or whatever, isn't perhaps having an intention to get me to feel a certain way. But the reality doesn't match equally that feeling. That's another question we're going to talk about a little bit. In looking at pictures and giving you an idea of what it is you need to ask and how much empathy an empathic approach, getting in touch with yourself so that you really ask some good questions about what's going on in those moments, each of those moments that you are faced with. Whether you're a competitor or just working a job, doing your thing, be it sublime or sophisticated, doesn't matter. So when you see a picture like this, a beautiful Olympic bikini bodybuilder posing, striking a pose, and in this case, this competitor, Crystal Rose, was and still is, in my opinion, still a great competitor, but has not competed in this way for many years. She's now a mom. But this picture, you wouldn't know whether that's current day or in the past, because you're looking at the attractive posture, body positioning, muscle structure, and saying, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful image. That's a representation of beauty personified, because that individual, if you know anything about that kind of bodybuilding, they take a look at nutrition, they take a look at posture, as well as muscle mass, but less about the mass of the muscle than the positioning and posturing of the muscle along the skeletal form. That is the perception they want to deliver to those looking at it, the judges looking at it. If you're not a judge and you're looking at that, you're going, that is just a beautiful form. Did you get what you saw? More than likely on the superficial side of it. But when you know more about that athlete, as I do, or you ask the questions, how did you get that body like that? What did you have to do to produce the form of those muscles on your legs, on your arms, on your shoulders, on your back, and have them all connect beautifully in a free-flowing form? Which, quite honestly, is the reason why they use a bikini, because it doesn't distract from the form. In fact, it enhances it. It brings attention to certain aspects of the form. But that would be a definition of beauty that many of us don't appreciate or even ask questions about. So did you get more from what you see now about what goes into creating that shape and form? Or like this picture, not as beautiful as the one before, but nonetheless, you get some images. You see Canada. You see the word Canada. You identify that there's snow and winter gear being worn. And then there's an armband on this individual's arm. And it says Sarah B, in honor of Sarah B, a snowboarder who was one of the pioneers of the pipe, in competing, women competing in snowboarding and in border cross and in the half pipe so that they can show their skills. Well, Sarah B, regretfully, she turned a move on the pipe, the half pipe, that she didn't land very well, and it took her life. She died. But she was such a pioneer and such a respected and honored athlete. This picture may be so subtle in its approach that you might not even see the little tag that sits up on the left shoulder of this individual that has SB on it and a red heart, that the Canadian team at the X Games a few years back honored her because it was in those X Games that her life was taken, but not without a lot of memories and honor of her. And the reason I bring up Sarah is because you would never have known in meeting her that she was a person with the passion and desires that she had for the sport at a time when the feminine powers were not being honored or seen during and prior to her actually getting into it. But because of her athleticism, her passion for the sport, and being a winter athlete, that she really drove hard at advocating for her fellow athletes and the sport itself, to the point now where, I mean, my gosh, we have border crossing, we have half pipers that have come after Sarah, and because of Sarah, And it's appropriate to know that this photo is in honor of her. I took this at the top of the border cross and ski cross track at the X Games, and talking to the Canadian team members about their honoring Sarah. And it was just humbling to be around that. But you would never have known by just the picture. You would have had to ask a question. And here's where I want to pause a moment and say to you, you got to have the courage to ask. If you want to know, if you sincerely and genuinely want to know something, then ask. Because if you don't ask, you don't get. It's really interesting to me, the amount of times when a question, an appropriate question asked at the right time, would have just faded away so much confusion and misunderstanding. It would have been just so great if that would have happened. And then there's moments like these that are captured at a regional Little League tournament that a Boulder, it was a Boulder, Colorado Little League team that went on to compete for a bid in the World Series, the Little League World Series. And regretfully they didn't, but they went a long ways. And this is a father and his son who was the pitcher for this team, and he has gone on to some fame. He's down in Florida now, pitching for IMG. He's a great kid from a great family. And this picture represents for me a celebration. But only one part of this picture identifies the celebration, and that's the embracing of the father and son on the field, where the other players are basically honoring. If you just look at their body posture, they're not jumping up and down, they're not grabbing each other as players, they're honoring this young man and his dad's space and time to celebrate in that one moment. Now I can tell you that they went on and they celebrated as a team because it was a great opportunity for the Boulder team to go on, because they hadn't done this in a long time. So this was a very special moment, not only for father and son, but for also for the team. But celebrations are sometimes very transparent in what you see. You go, oh yeah, something's going on, somebody's having fun. The opposite is equally true when you see the people who aren't celebrating. They're a bit forlorn. Maybe they're even pissed off. I don't know that they're not the ones cheering and jumping up and down in celebration of their win. But what you see many times, it looks very obvious what's going on. But maybe even within this picture of celebration of a father and son, you ask yourself a question about the other players around them. What are they thinking? When is it their time to celebrate? Are they feeling good about honoring this young man in his father's space at that time? And then there's also a coach standing nearby as well, noticing the celebration that the father and son are having. You don't always get what you see. So what you see is not always what you get. But it raises questions. And that's what I have for you. What questions would you ask when you see these things? Do you even ask questions? Or do you just take what you see for what it is, superficially, so that you in fact, get what you see? What you see is, in fact, what you get. You don't ask anything beyond that. So I ask you the question about asking questions. What would you ask in these pictures? I've given you some of those questions about asking a bikini Olympic bodybuilder, how did you get that way? How did you get the balance of all those muscles on your frame? What does it take to do that? What kind of attention to lifting? Are you lifting? Do you lift? Well, they lift differently, I can tell you that. Or the picture of the Canadian support staff person honoring Sarah and her efforts as a winter sport athlete, and that she played it so hard and so ferociously as an advocate for the sport, as well as an athlete herself, a very competitive, not just competent, but an excellent athlete in her winter sport. So much so that as it can happen, the sport itself in her celebration took her life. And they honored her, not only as an athlete, but they honored her as an advocate, a passionate contributor to the sport. And the questions I would ask you to ask about the father and son celebrating, and about the team that was around them, and maybe even thinking about the other team, not pictured here, but the thought might create a vision in your mind. What about the other team that lost? What are they thinking? What are they all about? So asking questions to understand more deeply, what does that image do for me? What do I see? And in those images, how do I pick out the truth in those images? Like the quote from Abraham Lincoln, we need facts. We need facts so that when we look at these things, when we see these images, and there's this obvious truth, celebration, beauty, honor, there's more there. Those pictures didn't get taken simply because of someone being in a place at a time where the image struck them to be captured on film. There's more there. There's a story there. There's an event. There's a happening of sorts. So how do you know what the truth of that picture is? Maybe that athlete, the picture being hugged by his father, had regrets. Yeah, they won, but I could have done better. Or the bodybuilder, maybe uncomfortable, looks beautiful, but because of the effort it takes to get to that place, there is some discomfort. The challenges create a little bit of anguish. I'll bet there's a time or two that she'd like to have a little ice cream here or there, or a piece of pie, maybe. Or something, whatever that favorite food is, that isn't necessarily on the diet, that would help generate the gorgeous body and physique that she has in that picture. So, seeing the truth on the superficial side, I'm asking you to ask more questions. Consider those questions. And when you consider those questions, also look at a more animated, results-oriented kind of image. Like, for example, this wonderful athlete scoring a touchdown for the Baltimore Ravens. It happens to be number 80 at the time. That was number 80 when he wore that jersey for the Ravens was Crockett Gilmore. He's now defensive line coach for the Colorado Mesa football team. I believe they're the Mavericks, if I'm not mistaken. And the sacrifices he had to make to get to that touchdown and to get to that effort, it was all about his preparation and the processes he took to get there. Not without a good deal of pain and suffering, I might add. He knows by the scars on his own body what that pain and suffering is all about. But he played the game well and played it hard. Sacrifices. You wouldn't know it by this picture. That is also a celebration right there. It's interesting what we see and how we think about what we see. Like, for example, this picture. These are 5 skiing athletes, some of which have Olympic experience. This is at X Games again. This is ski cross. And it's the men's ski cross event. They're airborne. They're flying in the air, going to land on top of this last hill and go down the hill, which is probably less than 60 yards. Once they land, they're going probably close to 60, 70 miles an hour when they hit that hill. And that is uncertainty. You are trusting your body and your mind being well connected to land it properly, because you are facing some uncertainty when you hit the snow. It's never the same place you land. There's no absolute that you're going to hit the same place every time you land, so that you have a confidence in that ability. What you have confidence in is the preparation you took to get here, and the furious nature of yourself, ferocity, of landing that jump in a way that's going to bring you to the finish line. Now, I was at the finish line taking that picture. I was amazed at the control and the certainty, even though there's a lot of uncertainty for me looking at this picture. I'm going, what? What is this? Well, of course, The greats make it look easy. To those of us watching who marvel at their talent, if we were as talented, we would be up there. But the greats make it look easy. The most difficult things, by those who are the greatest at it, make it look very simple, and usually come away with amazing, amazing accomplishments because of it. But it looks relatively uncertain to me. Are you going to land it safely? When you land, are you going to stay upright and come to the finish line? I hope so. And then there's moments like these. Now, I did not take this picture, but I am in this picture from the right-hand margin. I am the third person in this picture, wearing my stocking cap and my green jacket. I'm next to the guy in the white pullover. I'm on the sideline watching Donnell Alexander score the two-point conversion that we needed to tie the game, we being Colorado State University Rams. We were playing against Washington State University, an SEC team that was not shy about letting us know that the Pac-12 conference was the dominant force coming into this bowl game against the Mountain West competitor, CSU Rams. Well, we proved to them our tenacity and our execution and delivery of what our talents were, like Donnell Alexander scoring the two-point conversion to tie the game. Well, in that happening, we went and kicked off, and guess what? They fumbled, and we got the ball, I think, about the 25-yard line or something. We won the game with a field goal. Execution. It's still one of the most popular ESPN videos of a bowl game I've ever seen. It's extremely wonderful to watch. The last 2 minutes of that game, especially watching the air of confidence go out of the balloon that Washington State thought they had inflated against us. We just took the air right out of it because of our tenacity, the execution and confidence we had in our abilities. In particular, Donnell Alexander. Donnell was not one of the starting running backs. At that moment, at this time of his career, he was a third on the roster for that running back spot. But he was the only one who practiced the Statue of Liberty play that he executed to give us that tied two-point conversion. It just amazes me that we even practiced the Statue of Liberty play, because there was no forethought that we were going to use that play at any time during the game. But we did, and it was a key moment of execution, that the image that was created by this photograph did not reflect the story behind it. It is a great moment. That image shows a wonderful piece of execution, but it doesn't show or tell the whole truth. The real truth is in the stories that wraps those moments that are captured in these images. So when you have images, you see these great moments like this: Donnell Alexander, Crockett Gilmore, Olympic ski cross skiers. And this is a global audience of 5 skiers. It's not just, it's the US and Canada and Sweden. Italy was up there. Those moments and the images they create do not tell the story. You need to ask questions or become part of the story yourself, so that when you see these photographs, these images like I do, I can relate to the stories that are behind them, because I was part of the story. I was there to witness the stories. Not everybody has the opportunity to do that. Many of us just see the pictures, just see the images, or are told stories by others that give us pictures in our own minds. When that happens, continue to ask questions. If we don't ask questions, if we stop at the superficial references that these images give us, we may be fooled. We may be sucked into a false sense of reality or security within that reality that is not reasonable. maybe causes us to do things or say things that are inaccurate or inappropriate and don't represent the pictures, the images, the people in those pictures, or the people around those images that were actually there. It's not a truth because the facts are not there. You need to have real truth that is found in the facts of the images and the stories those facts represent. Some of you who know me and are listening today may realize that this is a metaphor. Today's show is a metaphor about a lot of things that are going on in our country. And interestingly enough, more stories globally that can benefit from the quote that we had at the beginning of the show about truth that needs facts, so that we can really look at images, look at and hear stories with a representation and participation by ourselves that can stand the test of time. Usually when there's a truth that's artificial, it's not substantiated by fact. The images are artificial, they're superficial, they don't truly represent the reality. They give you a kind of a feeling of something. You get interested, you get engaged with the picture, but the picture is really a camouflage for the truth because the facts don't represent it. We've got a lot of that going on, and I'm grateful for a lot of people who represent our cultures, our world, our cities, our towns. They're pushing hard to find the real truth because the facts are there. We're finding out some facts about the behaviors of people so that the pictures that have been created are no longer superficial. They're no longer artificial or camouflaged by the images that people try to use to distract us. It boils down to this question. When you look at images, ask yourself, what do you want to know? What do you want to know? Here's this picture in front of you. What's it tell you? Take that, use the superficial look and wrap your arms around it. Take it as truth on the first blush. But then ask questions about this thought. What do I want to know about that picture? Some of you may just walk away and say, I'm good. It's a good picture, but I'm good. Doesn't kind of pull me in. But for those of you who stop for a moment and are intrigued by what you see, ask questions. Ask questions more about what you want to know. There's more power in the questions that you ask than any of the answers you'll get. Because it's the questions, the series of questions and those answers that when connected really, truly substantiate the facts and give you insights that are really meaningful. And sometimes the meaning could be this. I connect all the answers to the questions I've asked, then I make a decision to move on. I'm done. I got my questions answered. I didn't take the superficial look of what the image was. I got more information from it. I know what I know now. I'm moving on. On the other side of the coin, no. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. You may even ask more questions. Now you're engaged. You want more. You want to know more. You might actually create more images yourself. Like this picture I have now in front of you of a group of people, one of which is myself. My arms are folded. I'm engaged. I think it shows I'm engaged in conversation with, this happens to be Soledad O'Brien at a conference we had in Colorado, and two other people there. The expressions of the other people are also indicative of what do you want to know. Why is that one person smiling and looking towards me? Why is the other person looking curiously a different direction? And what are Soledad and I talking about? And if you recognize Soledad O'Brien as another piece of information for yourself, what are you curious about? What do you want to know about this? And it's obvious Soledad is talking to me, and I'm listening to her by my posture and expression. Then you're going to wonder, is Soledad interviewing me? Is she sharing information with me? What is she doing? Well, here's a fact you might find interesting. Soledad is an equestrian. She loves to ride horses and jump them over objects. And she likes to compete. That's what we were talking about. She was talking about herself and asking me questions about herself as a rider and being, involved in the sport and the mental aspect, the mindset, and the mental conditioning that she could do differently or better within the horseback riding. We were talking about something unrelated to her field as a journalist. But you wouldn't know that from this picture. But you might gain that from this picture by asking more questions. And the first one is to yourself. What do I want to know about this? Do I want to know about just Soledad and this guy talking to her? Do I want to know about the two women on the side? Do I want to know about the event that they're at? What are they doing? What do I want to know? Start there, and you begin a journey of discovery that could give you a whole level of truth and facts that embraces and embellishes the superficial image that you're seeing. Becomes even greater, a little bigger, I love this picture. It's a great picture because it begs the question about what is the topic of conversation? What are they talking about? Especially if you have any clue as to who Soledad O'Brien is, and if you do that, it just opens the door, makes it even bigger. But if you don't know any of the people in this picture, just the expressions, the interactions, the environment they're at, you have a set of questions about answers to, what do I want to know? What do I want to know? Well, I want to know things about medical things. There's a lot of sports activity going on, and in those sports activities, athletes have injuries they're dealing with. Then if they're injured and it requires some support, like the emotional support that a coach gives his players, that's always very interesting to me. And this picture I have up here is with a coach that I know very, very well. I coached with him back when we were both working at Colorado State University. This is Alvis Wittig. Alvis is a wide receivers coach. He's now with the University of Wisconsin. Prior to that, he was with the Green Bay Packers. And this is his cadre of receivers when he was there. That is still, they're really good receivers. Not all of whom are still with Green Bay, but at the time they played at Green Bay with Alvis, they broke some records. Total reception yards, just individually, they were an outstanding group of young men, and still are as individuals. But as a group, with Alvis's tutelage, they were awesome players. Now, one of the things I'm going to point out here with this picture is that, getting together as a coach, sharing the truths and realities of being a wide receiver, there's some pretty truths, right? Your speed is a truth. Your execution in running a route is a truth. They actually now digitally monitor route running with cameras during practices and games so that the receivers can get this information back and identify how much movement do I have that I don't need. I can minimize my movement, which may or may not increase my execution speed and then the general overall speed of my route. It takes a sensitivity, an understanding of self, in addition to the coach having an understanding of his players as well as himself, so that the power of empathy, the attitude, your empathy attitude, EA, new phrase I'm coining, your EA as a coach, your empathy attitude is clearly understood so that when you do share information with each other, the truth of the sport, the truth of the position, you're able to really quickly get the messages shared with each other. Because a lot of times when you get on the sidelines during a game, there's not a lot of time to get engaged and get the information digested, put it in your brain, process it, and then go out and execute. That's what practice is for. But there's another team out there, right? There's a corner, a safety, a linebacker, going to stop these guys, try to stop these guys from running their rounds. So empathy attitude is a huge part of the communication process and the skill building that one has to do so that you get what you see. In a wide receiver, the ultimate accumulation of getting what you see is catching the ball. You can run a really crappy route, but if you still get open, catch the ball. Or in some cases, you ran a really good route, but the ball wasn't thrown so well. Catch the ball. Well, empathy attitude. Here are some things to consider when you're thinking about your empathy attitude. First of all, when you interact with anybody or people, even if it's a crowd, eye contact. I know as a public speaker, I can look into the audience and I can make eye contact with people in the audience. Make eye contact as your first step towards engaging and releasing your empathy attitude. I know Alvis Wittig really well, and I know that when he sits in a position meeting with his players, or he sits in a meeting game the day before a game, the evening before a game, he's making eye contact with them as he talks to the group, as he talks to individuals about route running, about the defensive strategies the other team might have and how they have to compete against that with their routes, how they may have to adjust and adapt a route given a certain move a corner or safety might do to make that receiver adjust, and what they're going to do to stay non-verbally in most cases in contact with the quarterback. So the empathy attitude between receiver and quarterback starts with eye contact. To get to that place, it starts with coaches on the sideline and their receivers and their eye contact during those practice sessions as well as during the game, because you don't have a lot of time to make it happen. It's a short window of time. In addition to that is when you're talking to each other, listen to understand. Too often coaches are talking on the sideline during a game because they're excited, they're amped up, they're competing. That's the time that you hear that happening, that the barometer goes up and you go, oh, hold on, take a breath, I gotta stop doing this. All right, talk to me. I'm listening now. I'm listening to understand you. What's going on? What is the corner doing to you that I need to understand? And then it flip-flops. As a player, the empathy attitude for the player also needs to be one of listening to understand. In their head, they're going, Coach, what do you need from me? What are you saying to me, Coach? All right, I got this. Now, I know that with Alvis, he likes to grab a shoulder pad. You know, the receivers are usually sitting on a bench between series offense versus defense. He's a hugger, toucher. He makes contact in different ways. And I know there's a great understanding amongst all the wide receivers he's ever worked with or played with that touching is okay. They get it. That's part of the empathy attitude as well. Because listening is not just with your ears. It's with your eyes, watching movement, appreciating what the interactions are physically with each other. You can see from this picture, they're a close group. It's a good picture. Good body posture indicates they like each other. So listening to understand isn't just with your ears. So as you listen, make sure that you use questions. When we talk about truth and facts, what you see isn't always what you get. Ask a question for clarity. If you want a good, strong, empathic attitude, you need to have that skill of, if you were listening to understand, you're going to ask really good questions to get clarity. So that in this example with athletics and football at the pro level, once you listen to get clarity and you ask questions for clarity, you're more likely than not going to go onto the field and execute exactly what you discussed with your teammate and your coaches. You know, as I think about my experiences with Alvis and other coaches around the country and different levels of sports, both pro and non-pro athletics, I'm reminded of how quickly we can both engage ourselves, reach clarity, get deep understanding, but equally is true, we can slip on that. We can try being strong with our empathic attitude, but many times the speed with which things go wraps us up in that, and we're not as mindful as we could be. So I'm going to take a pause and ask you just to think about making sure that you're breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, as you're making that eye contact, as you're getting your ears engaged to listen with the intent to understand. And as you ask questions, you don't need to be in a hurry, because part of that focused clarity that you want will come as a result of you asking a question in a very methodical, fluid way. It doesn't have to be fast. Understand who you're talking to so that the speed and tone you use to ask the question is in a way that's going to be quickly and efficiently received, or quickly and effectively received by who you're talking to. So empathy attitude also has a component that is not necessarily something that's heard. It's something that's seen, which is why I call it show genuine interest. Your body posture, your physical proximity to people will show, like are you leaning forward, will show you're engaged. Like my conversation with Soledad O'Brien tonight at that event, I had eye contact, I leaned slightly forward, my arms are crossed, showing, not closing myself off, I was showing I'm all packaged and centered in on what you're saying. Show genuine interest by what you look like so that they get what they see. They get an engaged individual, an engaged coach, an engaged player. Players, yes, I know, you're sweating. You've been punched and stepped on and hit, if it's football. That doesn't give you an excuse not to be genuine in your interest in what the coach is saying. Get engaged, be engaged, show your interest. I can tell you without any hesitation and almost with certainty which teams will have a win based on my observations of a sideline. Even if in the moment I'm watching them, they're behind on the scoreboard. I can see genuine interest by coaches and players simply by their nonverbal communication, because they're not demonstrating genuine interest. And this can be even players who aren't even starting. They're not in the rotation. On the depth chart, there may be 5 or 6. They're not even 1 or 2. I can see the genuine interest. And if I see the genuine interest from the least common denominator, that could be managers, equipment person, trainer. If there's not genuine interest demonstrated by the physical posturing of individuals on the sideline, there's going to be a problem on the scoreboard. Empathy attitude, eventually, like most things, should end up in some form of action towards specific outcomes. And if you're truly showing an empathic posture, and you have an empathy attitude that is almost palpable, it's so strong both in your physical action as well as the words you say and the responses you give to people, your true offer of support is through your actions. You don't get to those actions unless you have had the eye contact, listening to understand, showing genuine interest in what people are saying to you, and you're asking questions for clarity. You don't get to those offers of support and those actions that represent that unless you've gone through the process. You've demonstrated and delivered your empathy attitude. I know at least one person that does that, and that's Alvis Whitting, wide receivers coach at the time of this photograph of the Green Bay Packers. And now he's currently a wide receivers coach for the University of Wisconsin and doing a fantastic job. I have said to him on many occasions that I would love to see him become a head coach. He's got such a passion for the game and the players that he teaches and guides, both on and off the field. That he's one of the best, and I wish him nothing but the best. So as I say that, I'm thinking about, my gosh, we've got all these sports going on. They're in transition, either towards some form of end of season type thing, or they're in the midst of the season, like baseball's in the midst of the season, football's about ready to start a season, basketball at the pro and college level is doing all their training stuff during the summer. There's been the draft. You've got hockey just had their draft. A lot of teams, the Avalanche is looking to trade and maybe hopefully sustain good goalies to go along with their great defense, to see if they can repeat. Well, of course they could repeat. Will they repeat? That's the question, right? The picture we saw of the Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup may not be the picture that will guide us towards the next Stanley Cup. We need to ask more questions and clarify, get our empathy attitude engaged and in gear. College football is also looking at things. There's the SEC is touting Alabama as going to the national championship again, being in the mix for that. They're starting off by just saying, they're going to be SEC champs. And that's more than likely. I mean, how many teams do you know when you look at their roster? The freshmen have their 5A, 4A. I mean, 3A is like an insult for an Alabama recruit. But that being said, a lot of changes have been made. So if a 4 or 5A player is not getting his quality ticks on the clock of the game time at Alabama, they may wind up moving someplace else and going to a different team and getting more time than they were getting or not getting at Alabama. So college football, a lot of things going on. One of the things of interest to me these days is NIL, the name, image, and likeness of college athletes. They have a chance to make some money while they're a college ball player. I've talked about it here on the show before about high school players in their senior year. They can get a manager and start developing the economic power of their brand and their image and their likeness. A lot of really interesting things going on. I hope you'll tune in here, 360 Performance, to get some of the real truths about performance initiatives and strategies that will help not only yourself, perhaps, but people that you know be their best, whether it's athletic prowess, business prowess, or just being a good friend. We offer strategies that are transferable in a lot of ways. They're not unique just to sports. But in sports, it's usually at the elite level we talk about in optimizing our personal performance. Here at 360 Performance. Did that sound like an infomercial? I hope it did. Check us out at 360mindset.com. That's our website for 360 Performance. Send us a comment. Share your ideas, share your thoughts with us. Because in doing that, you represent yourself as preparing a thought to share with me, a question you might have, to get to a deeper truth, more facts. Russell Wilson calls the difference between being a champion, the separation is in the preparation. Russell Wilson, a lot like people that go before him at the Denver Broncos, Peyton Manning being one of them, was big on preparation. And I think in looking back in his twilight years, his retired years as an NFL player and champion, Peyton Manning would agree that he wasn't always the most athletic person on the field, but he would be hard-pressed to be the one who wasn't the most prepared. He was the most prepared. I would challenge anybody in their preparation as a quarterback to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning many times was the last one out of the locker room, the last one off the field because he was taking more reps, doing something more to make himself better. Now, with somewhat tongue-in-cheek, his improvement, his preparation was many times a strategy on how to compete against others that would challenge him beyond his capabilities. He didn't have the best footwork. So if he was facing a defense that had really fast, really strong and powerful linemen, he had to be able to know that and prepare against it. And he got pretty good at it. He knows the game better than most, and how he adapted, how he separated himself from others was his preparation, as does Russell Wilson. Separation is definitely in the preparation. If you want to be a champion, you want to separate yourself from others. Let's see if I can figure out the technology to separate myself from others. So what does, in a picture, can you see preparation? Do you know what it looks like? Is there a distinction between one picture and the image it produces? Can you see that? And does success reveal that preparation? When you look at it, I don't know, let's take a look. Let's take a look at some pictures. I think there's some pictures you can pretty honestly say, yeah, that's the truth. Like this one, Michael Jordan, Air Jordan. This was the last dunk contest he ever competed in. because every time he got in, nobody could compete against him. He loved the showmanship of this. I mean, this was just amazing, amazing feats of athleticism. Gatorade slam dunk competition. Man, that's just, I mean, what are you going to say about a picture like that? There's nothing more to say. I don't even have any more questions. Well, the questions I have are ones I can't accomplish. Like, how do you get to jump that high? How do you stay in flight that long? Like you're floating. How do you do it? He just does, like I said earlier. The greats make it look easy, the impossible. And then there's people like this. I would have loved to have met Joe DiMaggio for two reasons. Teach me how to hit the way you, anywhere close to the way you hit. And two, what did you say to Marilyn Monroe to get the first date with her? That's just, like, what kind of energy and confidence does it take? Or maybe it doesn't take any at all. Maybe it just takes, you know what, I like her, she looks like she might like me, I'm just going to ask her out for a date. But those are the two areas I would like to talk to Joe DiMaggio about. And then this is a classic. Tiger Woods on the tee box, getting ready to hit his drive. You can just tell by the picture that even if you didn't know who that golfer was, this guy's popular. People want to hang around him when he tees off at whatever the hole of this is. Could be number 1, number 18, whatever it might have been. But that's the kind of gravitas that Tiger Woods brought to the game. That's the truth of his preparation. He separated himself, and people wanted to be part of that image. And then there's these. How do you not know that that is a great moment? At the peak of his jump, what coaches say to receivers, get it at the peak of your jump and receive the ball above the defense. That's a Joe Montana pass for a game-winning touchdown for a Super Bowl win. At the peak of his jump. So some images are self-evident in their statement of truth, of the expertise, the quality of the skill, and the outcomes of the effort. It's just amazing stuff. Ask more questions to get clarity of what the truth is all about. You need facts. So if the image doesn't quite resonate with you, it looks attractive, it might give you some kind of, goosebumps on your arm or some thrill about what you're seeing, but it not quite all there yet. That's the gut feeling you need to go with and say, I need to ask more questions. Now, if the picture just doesn't charge you up, doesn't really grab a hold of you, move on. Don't waste your time. It is something of interest to me as a coach, as a sports performance professional, as a mental conditioning and mental performance coach. I have to ask questions. The power of what I do is in my observations. I help coaches, players, executives, people who desire high performance outcomes, the ability to have more observation power in seeing what they do. I still train them to be good at asking questions. Don't just see it and take it at face value. It's not always what you see is not always what you get, and you could be disappointed. So when you tune in every Friday, expect those kind of outcomes. Expect truth from us based on an empathy attitude that drives us to really listen and be part of the engagement of those people and things that are going to make us better. Now, after today, I'm going to polish this up, hopefully not too much polish, and post it on Spotify. Well, actually, we're going to post it on our podcast platforms. There's many of them out there. If you enjoy Spotify, Apple, or Google, just type in 360 performance, and our wonderful yellow logo will pop up, and you'll get a chance to take a look at any of the broadcasts we've created here at KUHS, streaming to you. It's a great power. It's a powerful thing, that streaming stuff. I was just telling Henry that the technology we have here is, it takes a lot to duplicate what we have here, and Henry's such a genius at doing it. And he gets involved. He gets involved in this. He has an empathy attitude. He's always asking questions. He's always striving for the best. So when you do that, the plans just kind of happen. You don't even think about making them. They just kind of happen. But in those moments when you're kind of thinking about it and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do next? Hopefully you've got some great plans so that you can continue to get involved and stay with us. Stay here with us streaming on KUHS Denver, especially on Fridays at 11 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Check us out at 360 Performance. Now, I find that I have the show pretty well locked in my head as far as my clock, but there are moments when I have great topics like this that I get excited about, and I finish a little early. And when I do that, I want to share with you some thoughts about the world around us, based on today's show, but I'm going to use events and incidences in our world around us in the last few weeks that I want to reflect on truth and facts. The truth of it is, we as human beings, regardless of where you might find yourself on this planet Earth, have things like gravity, that everybody's affected the same way. And truth is truth. When I speak something and then I act in a way that doesn't represent that truth, that's the same anywhere on this planet. I could be in Mongolia or London or New York City or just down the street in Denver. It's still not going to be right. What I said is not what I did. That's not representative of truth. It's not what I see did I get. I did not get what I see. And that is the truth for all of us. So I'm going to ask you more often to be critical of what you see and ask questions to make sure it holds up to scrutiny, that it stands true to the test of time. Thankfully, in our world right now, on our planet and in this country of the United States, we're finding out that there are people who value truth and the facts that back it up, and they're asking more questions. They're bringing forth information and their empathy through their attitude to discover what's necessary to move forward. They're looking people square in the eye and asking them to speak truth. And if it doesn't sound right, they're asking more questions. They're asking for, prove that to me. The show me state. Everybody pretend you're in Missouri. Missouri is the show me state. Prove it to me. I'm not going to take it at face value because it doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel right. My empathy attitude is a little bit kind of sensitive. I'm going to prove to myself by asking questions that are clearly stated. Keep asking questions and be part of the realities that bring greatness to bear, that really move us level up, not level on. I don't want status quo. I want an improvement, and I want to return to the honesty that gave us the greatness of this country. Have a great day today, everybody. Enjoy the day the best you can and safely, spending a lot of time taking care of who you are with an empathy attitude that gives you the truth as you need to know it. Have a great day today.